Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Amit with another episode of Origin Junctions. This is probably the last one I'll do before Christmas slash holidays, whatever you guys want to call it, wherever you're from, whatever religious ethnicity you belong to. Primarily because the holidays are coming up and we're going to come back again in the new year. But before we left on this year, there was somebody I got introduced to recently, quite randomly actually via my cousin. But what he's doing is Ollie Graham, and what he's doing is he's creating a documentary series, or a documentary, I should say, talking to various points of Black culture, Black community, and the not necessarily trials, tribulations, but the idea of not being part of your homeland, the idea of kind of creating your own. Again, I'll let him explain it in more detail than I'm doing, but it seemed ridiculously interesting and something that I figured would be interesting to talk about, something that I've never met before, and came about organically. And he's actually in Seattle. I'm in New York, obviously. And I thought it'd be a good conversation to start to end this year and start the new year with, just based on everything that's gone on this year with the elections and with all the issues we'll be dealing with as a society. And he's got an interesting take on that. So with that, I'm gonna introduce right now. So we're introduce. This is Ali right here. So it's Ali, and good to meet you, man. Much love.
Same here, bro.
Thanks for taking the time. So Ali, as mentioned, in Seattle. I'm here. He's actually wrapping up to start his vacation and head down to the Bay Area with the wife. But before he does that, he gave us some time, and I want to utilize that time appropriately. So I guess let's start here. You are not from the film background, or you're from the
No.
technology background. What is your background? Let's start there. You were from where? Give me
So
your story.
yeah, so I'm born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. And if that's not apparent right now, it will be very soon. The longer we talk, man, the more the accent comes out. So just give it some time. But yeah, man. So my background essentially is entertainment law. I went to school for it, and trying to honestly, just as a lot of people, I'm sure, if you've met a number of folks from Atlanta, have a background in music or know somebody who's making music or
Yes.
something like that. Yeah, so that's pretty much where it came from, and just even as like a kid, man, growing up, I think I'm from the age of like MTV True Story and like VH1, Behind the Music and all of that.
Yeah,
So kind
my
of
age,
growing
same
up, man,
group. How old are you?
yeah. So I'm 32.
All right, so I'm 30. I'm 38. But
Yeah.
but either way, yeah,
Same,
yeah,
same,
same
same,
same
same,
vibe. Yeah.
same group, man. Yeah. So, and just kind of growing up, man, you hear a number of those war stories of these artists who were just robbed of any type of royalty or whatever type of contractual issues they come across in becoming world renowned superstars.
Mm-hmm.
And just having a lot of friends of mine at that time in Atlanta who were trying to do something similar to the guys on TV. I knew I couldn't create. I wasn't musical in any sense. But what I wanted to do, I wanted to be a part of the industry and somehow the entertainment industry some way. And because I come from an entrepreneurial type of family, I figured that the easiest way for me to kind of get in would be with the music business as opposed to music creation.
Okay.
And what I gravitated toward more than anything was understanding contracts, understanding the law of entertainment
So
as
you're a
opposed to
lawyer
the
by trade.
creation. I'm not an attorney.
Oh.
It was so I went so that was the initial, that was the catalyst in order for me
Okay.
to get kind of a foot into the industry, was learning the music business. So leading up to that, kind of high school and college and all that, my plan was to go to law school, and that was kind of the end goal for me, is to become an attorney, and not I didn't have a clear understanding of what exactly I wanted to do, but just music law was in there somewhere.
Got it.
And then I realized how much schooling it took, and I was like, "Nah, this is gonna work. This is not the way to go, man." So I ended up dropping out of law school, and I wanted, at that point, I was just kind of like, I want to get to it. There was so much school that I had to go through, and there was more schooling and more loans, which was honestly one of the key reasons why I decided to hit a jack. But I knew how much school was going to be a part of it, and that's not what I was interested in. I was interested in actually doing the work and getting my hands wrapped around the music and the contracts. And I realized I could learn how to do that if I just interned or
Yeah.
had a clerkship. And there were a number of entertainment law firms in the city, so that's what I did, and I kind of cut my teeth with negotiations and understanding contracts and drafting and things of that nature.
This is all still in
So
Atlanta at the time.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Just with internships, man, and just making connections throughout the city. and that worked really well for me. At the same time, though, I developed a love for film, and having an understanding of the law, having a passion for music since birth, and then having a better understanding of film and appreciation of filmmakers and what they have to go through in order to get their content out there. I found myself like in this in between world of having contacts with filmmakers and having contacts with musicians, and it kind of stumbled into the world of music supervision. I'm not sure if you're familiar with music supervision, but essentially I was the guy for a very long time on a number of independent films in Atlanta, filmed in Atlanta, filmed in Los Angeles. I was essentially the dude who, producers and directors would come to, anybody in the film team would come to and say, we have a scene, we don't have any music, so we need someone to kind of place a dope song here that matches what's
Got it.
going on in the script, or kind of carry the scene, or pick some emotion from the audience, and kind of just plug away at that. So that's what I did, because I was pretty good at it, and because it kept me kind of both. In doing that, you not only have to pick the correct song, but you have to license the song,
Mm-hmm.
find out who owns it, kind of track those people down, and kind of figure out what terms you and the film team can come to in order to properly place that song. So this was, what I was doing in and around Atlanta for a little while. The good thing about working in film in Georgia was that there were so many tax breaks that people
Yes.
from LA would be coming to Georgia to film.
So I don't know
And
if you
so
know
that,
this, but that's what I do now for a living. Is I sell
yeah,
tax incentives to
see,
take production
see,
to Georgia, whatever. Because I used to be a production accountant. I used to work on set for a minute, and that's what I do now. So that's what's funny. You say full circle, yeah.
yeah. All right, man. So you already know.
No, but I'm saying, but that's an interesting. It's funny how more
Cool.
and more
So I
business
mean,
got brought to you. You got things that weren't initially going to be in Georgia, but now we're everywhere.
well, so the thing, yes, I can take full credit for that, but ultimately, it was two people in Atlanta who were doing it, man. It was me and the person who mentored me, who were doing music supervision at that time. So it was kind of just like you kind of have to go through me or somebody that I know in order to get this done. And that became a more popularized thing. The more people started to take notice in what songs were being placed in films and TV shows. But at the time, and nobody was really checking for this. So
Yeah.
I was burnt out on it, and also because the people I was working with would ultimately go back to Los Angeles. Then that's where my sights were set. And I moved to LA to kind of pick up the music supervision thing, and that rolled right into working as a music rights specialist for Warner Brothers.
Okay.
And so now I'm kind of, the ball is rolling, and I'm doing what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, at that time, though, I was working as a contractor, right? So I had my music supervision thing out in LA that I was doing, and they were hiring me as a contractor to come work on these like old archival titles. I mean, like the Wizard of Oz. Whenever like a song in some old movie would expire, or a term for a song in some old movie would expire, they would need somebody to kind of go through the archives and figure out, okay, where can we exploit these films? Maybe
Yeah.
because we don't have the permission to play it in the UK, what other territories are we able to exploit this movie to still make money off of it until we can come to terms with the producer or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not sure if I've bored your
No, no,
audience
no,
with
no.
tears
This is
yet.
stuff that I understand because I used to work in the
Yeah,
residual side and the
yeah, yeah.
amortization side. So you can't just give it anywhere. So I totally
Right.
understand what you're talking about. Yeah.
So that was my gig at WB, man, and I was living life. And I learned the life of an independent contractor, man, is a stressful life to lead.
That's
And
what that's what I got out of it. Yeah, I'm with you.
yeah, so
I'm
they,
with
they
you.
kept extending my contract, and everything was lovely, but working as a contractor, you don't really get like health benefits, or so there came a point where they were like, okay, so unfortunately you're too expensive, we can't pull you in as a full-time, and we parted ways. And at that same time, I got a phone call from a tech company out in Santa Monica who was just looking for somebody to come in and do some legal work. And that was kind of it. That's how I got started in tech. This was a startup out in Santa Monica I had never heard of before. But the person who was leading the legal group had a history at Disney, so she fell in love with my history at WB and was like, "All right, so I can't really talk to these techies, but I know I can talk to you that stand to help me kind of this tech world." So that was kind of it, man. I jumped ship from WB, or they let me go from WB, and I went to this small tech company out in Santa Monica called Edgecast. I was there for maybe a year and a half, and unbeknownst to me at the time, I was prepping the company to be bought out by Verizon.
Oh shit.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so your reaction is essentially how, that was my reaction when I realized what was going on. At the time, I didn't know, I didn't have a clue. I was just, kind of drafting documents and making sure that things were aligned. Every uh every document that they had a home, and if someone needs to go retrieve it, they knew where to go get it with immediacy. And building these platforms essentially is what I was doing, working with the director of IT, was building essentially a content developing platform so people can go retrieve contracts whenever they needed it. So Verizon came knocking, and then the legal team was like, "This is why you were prepping this platform, is because these Verizon attorneys are going to need to do their due diligence and find out all of this stuff, to kind of pass FCC, whatever,
Yeah.
in order to buy the company." So that happened, and now I'm kind of just, I have one foot in startup and I have another foot in large Verizon. And some phone calls started rolling in. The acquisition was worth $325 million, and when you're able to put that on your resume, then you don't really have to search that hard
Yeah.
for recruiters to kind of give you some shouts back. Is it's not so much hard work. When you're able to close a deal like that. And because I was a part of the team, and it was a very slim team. I'd say out of maybe two or three attorneys, Verizon had maybe 8 to 10. There were
Yeah.
maybe two or three on our end, and I was the one contracts manager. So ultimately, when the one or two attorneys on our side would get too busy, then the Verizon attorneys would talk to me and try to, kind of hasten the process and kind of move the M&A process along. And so I was gaining a ton of knowledge in figuring out how companies partner, the operations, the logistics of these things, and how on such a large scale, two firms can kind of come together and make a partnership work. Again, this is me with, one degree separated from the entertainment world, so I'm new to all of this and learning all of this stuff, and I didn't realize the breadth of knowledge I had attained while going through this process.
But that's a general thing with entertainment. Is a lot of people end up falling into a lot of things, and you end up learning it by way of necessity.
Yeah,
And you know what I'm saying? So it's not like you went to school for, whatever it is. It's just it's
nah,
learned traits.
that's 100% what it was, man. It was on the job training 100%, and just figuring it out. And if you F up, then, try not to, though, because, there again are Verizon attorneys, and,
Yeah.
you try to
They're not
nail it
really
the
small
first
fry. They
time.
know what they're doing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So one of the people who were blowing up my phone at this time, or shortly after, was a recruiter with Beats. And I remember the first time she contacted me was probably by email, late at night, and I just get this random email from a recruiter at Beats. She's like, "We heard what you did with Verizon. We can't really tell you what we have coming up soon, but it's something. But you're used to the type of work that we'll need you to do here at Beats. And down the line, there's going to be something similar that might happen, but we can't really give you too much detail about that right now." So Beats recruited me from the company that got sold to Verizon. I was a Verizon employee at this time, and when Beats by Dre calls, kind of like,
Yeah.
hell yeah, like,
Especially for the music game. Yeah.
right, exactly. So she knew my history and where my passion was. Although I found myself in this tech world, that's not, it paid the bills. I'll
Yeah. I
say
feel
that.
you.
It paid real well, but at the same time, it wasn't anything I was super passionate about. So having the opportunity to work for Dr. Dre's company was something that I would jump at, and I think they knew it. It took a long time in order for things to close, but shortly after the Verizon deal closed, I was able to jump to Beats by Dre, and I was there for maybe a year and a half, maybe, before it was ultimately revealed to me that the company that they had kind of told, kind of spoken about
Yeah.
previously, was
It's
Apple.
Apple. Yeah.
So then it went from a 325 M to three Bs in like a year and a half in regards to the deals that
Yeah.
I was in the M&A process. The $325 million Verizon acquisition to the $3 billion Apple acquisition, and ultimately I was doing the same thing, just building a platform to help people find things a little bit faster. And Apple took notice of this, and they said, "All right, well, your strength is in efficiency. and just essentially just wiping out any mistakes that you see departments having, anything that they might be lacking in regards to document exchange or information exchange or just dealing with any other department in a lackadaisical way. Apple was not having any of it.
Excuse me.
Their jobs essentially was do the best job at the time, and in the shortest amount of time as possible. So because that had been essentially my entire history, right? So even going back to doing the music supervision stuff, ultimately my job was to kind of come aboard a project, essentially just make sure that the filmmakers and the people who own the songs were able to converse in a way that made sure we hit our marks when the deadline called for it. That's ultimately what I was doing with Edgecast, with Verizon, with Apple, with Beats, was just making sure the information was being exchanged in as an efficient way as possible. It just so happens that I was doing it in these legal departments as opposed to a music department now.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I mean, the work was the same thing. So after I was promoted to a legal specialist within Apple. I was kind of just looking around like, how the hell did I get here? I was working at WB not too long ago. Now all of a sudden I'm at Apple, and these people giving me these titles, and I'm
Hold up.
working
So
with
you
these
moved up
folks.
to the Bay Area at this point? You're in
Nah, man, I was. So the beautiful thing about the acquisition was we didn't have to leave. Beats was in Culver City. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know anything about Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I used to live in Hermosa. I used to live right by
word,
Raj.
yeah,
Yeah. I used
cool.
to work all
So
about
so
this. Yeah.
so we were in Culver City and we didn't have to leave. It was just Apple was acquiring the brand, right? So Beats wasn't its own operational company anymore. It was a
Okay.
brand under Apple, but because we had a dope office space, I mean, incredible, man.
Because you guys are by
Apple just
Sony, yeah? You guys are around the same way?
yeah. Yep. Not too far from, I think that's where they shot I Love Lucy. It was like this historical landmarks all around there. So Sony's in Culver City. I want to say Paramount's not too far.
No, Paramount's up the way as well. So real quick, for the people
Beats
who
was right
don't know
there.
where LA is at, Culver City is just north of the airport, like a little further east of that too, but a solid area,
Yeah.
pretty close. Um, my cousin Raj Samtani, who is how Ali and I even met, he lives down in Hermosa Beach, and he and I used to live down there together, both from Jamaica, etc. But so that's how it all comes full circle and random, you know.
So it was a beautiful time, man. Doing some really incredible things. I had my foot in tech and music. That's where I wanted to be. It was absolutely incredible. Walking around with the Apple tag now was a beautiful thing. It gave me a
That's gonna
ton of
be a
clout.
huge career boost. I can't even imagine
It
that.
was. So here's what happened. So when I realized that Apple wanted me to move up to the Bay Area, I went up there. Well, I don't even know if it would be the Bay Area, Cupertino.
Yeah,
So
Cupertino, yeah, Palo Alto, all
North
that kind of stuff.
California.
Yeah,
Yeah,
North Cal.
yeah. And it's nothing else there, man. Apple's there, and that's about it.
I've
So
been, yeah.
I went to go check it out, man, and it was just not what I wanted at all. And I also realized that I was getting further and further away from the music and from
Mm.
entertainment, which is why I started. That's why I moved to Los Angeles, and now I'm in this tech world around a bunch of people who look nothing like me, talking about things that aren't music or film
Oh, we're
related.
gonna get back to that because I want to talk to you about that itself,
Yeah, so
that
that's
division of it.
that's that's the world I was in, man. So at around the time, because we had, we were really blessed and privileged, lucky, or whatever you want to call it, to have gone through these acquisitions, and every step of the way, we're acquiring equity, and just pay us from just doing the hard work, in addition to kind of banking these salaries. Unfortunately, though, at the time, I was trying to plan a wedding, man. Like my wife and I had just gotten married, and so all of the time that shit had been dedicated to just, kind of spending time with my new wife and my new family, and all that was given directly to Apple or Verizon. This was 2 years of my life that was just spent around tech attorneys talking
Yeah,
about how to make these billionaires even richer. And that was not my game plan. Again, I came to LA for my own entrepreneurial aspects, and this was me kind of chasing the money. So I had an opportunity at the end of that year, at the close of the Beats deal. My wife and I just kind of took some time off and went to Paris, visit her family in the south of France, and was kind of just kicking it, man. And around this time, Ferguson, Missouri was burning. And so we're watching the TV, we're watching American news, and we're seeing, like after the Mike Brown incident occurred,
yeah.
in St. Louis or near St. Louis, we're living it up. We just come off of, some incredible years and, doing some really cool things, newlyweds and now spending time in France and, just balling with some money in our pocket and, no worries at all. And then we turn on the TV, try to find out what's going on back home. And Ferguson's on fire, man. People are rioting in the streets and screaming for civil rights, which is just a ridiculous thing to have to ask
Yeah,
for.
in 2016 or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So that was the first instance where I thought to myself, I mean, I can't be. I have to do something else. And I had that opportunity to do something else because I wasn't tied to anybody at that particular time. And we definitely had the means to kind of go and be independent to do whatever it is that we wanted to do. But I got a call from Amazon, and Amazon was like, LA is expensive. You should come make that money in a less expensive place to live. And so, they started hyping up Seattle, and the pay that Amazon was prepared to give me at that time was beautiful, man. And again, I was a newlywed, so instead of doing what I should have done, I chased the money again.
I
And
don't, no knocking judgment, right? This is what it is.
it is
We've
what
all
it is,
done
man.
it. We've all done it.
Yeah, and so it was I found myself shortly thereafter we came back to the States and we moved, man. We packed up. We left LA and came to Seattle. Um, it was great, man. The opportunity to work with such a large company and have a hand in global facilities was a incredible learning lesson. However, it had nothing to do with what I wanted to do.
Mm.
I was working within a real estate group within a global conglomerate, and that could not be further away from what I was interested in or passionate about. But again, chasing the money, man, it was kind of led us to the city. So here we were, kind of in this. I'm born and raised in Atlanta. My wife is from San Francisco. We spent for about 4 years in LA. All of those cities are pretty black and brown.
Yes.
And now we found ourselves in Seattle, Washington. It's just, nah, it's not the same, man. It's not the same at all. So again, I found myself working around people who don't look like me. And now not only are they talking about tech, they're talking about real estate. Neither one of those things I'm interested in or have, too much to do with me. So a lot of my time spent there was trying to, learning the ways of Amazon and learning how to work within that system in addition to learning real estate, an industry I had nothing to do with before prior. So that was kind of like my first year in Seattle, and it was uncomfortable as it sounds. And every step of the way, it was just
Hold
trying
up,
to
but did you notice when you first got, like, did you notice a disparity? Like, did you notice the fact that you were not like everybody around you by way of just
absolutely
your appearance? Like, it's that.
immediately you see it, right? So it's not like Republicans and Democrats, or it's kind of like it takes a minute for you to find out who's who. It's immediate, man. When you walk into the room and you're the only person who's as dark as you are there, and I'm talking, I don't mean just like in one conference room. I mean on the entire floor, and then maybe it might be in the entire building, depending on the day. So
Is your
you
wife black
start.
as well? Sorry if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
no, yeah. So that was my saving grace, to be quite honest with you, because I would go home and just say these things like I'm not crazy, right? Like this is weird, right? Because nobody else wants to say it. And it was an odd thing to me because as you were as comfortable as you were asking that question, the people here would feel weird about doing it, and then that makes me feel weird because you're weird, and now we're awkward as hell in this room and nobody wants to talk about it. Like that's strange. So it was just it was an off-putting moment that I had to figure out how to get used to, as opposed to everybody else getting used to it and all of us, kind of just
All
understanding
right,
what it
told.
is that we're
Let's
dealing
take a
with.
step real quick. Let me take a step
Yeah.
back real quick. You've had obviously a ridiculously interesting path to get to where you're from to where you're at right now. Oh, actually, we even got to where you're at right now, but to at least Amazon stage so far.
Mm-hmm.
You've moved from Atlanta, Georgia, which is a predominantly black area, especially in the film entertainment space. Especially what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, I believe it was a predominantly black area, which is a
Mm-hmm.
positive for as well
Mm-hmm.
as it's like minds, like cultures,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
circumstance, if you will. You
Mm-hmm.
go to LA, it's a little more diverse, a little more spread out. The Bay Area completely different by way of division of people, etc. And Seattle, the complete opposite. Like you've gone from dark to light to some level, if you want me to put it that way. Well, I'm putting
Yeah,
it that
yeah,
way,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Now, with that
yeah.
being said, though, was your personal experience anyway? I mean, beyond the fact of looking around and saying, "All right, hold up, this is obviously different to me. Like one is not like the other." But independent of that overt visual difference, if you will? Was it difficult on a personal level, without you having to go home and talk to your wife about it? Was it difficult for you to be like, hold up, I don't belong here? Or is it difficult in whatever realm? Or is that a wrong word to use? Maybe there's a better way to describe it.
Challenging, but I mean, it's
Okay.
the same. It would, and I think ultimately it's just, it comes down to you just not. What can I say? It's just cultural differences,
Yeah.
right? And that doesn't
But I mean,
necessarily
it wasn't
only
negative
mean
though.
racial.
I guess my main point was it wasn't
Mm,
negative. I mean, you didn't. It wasn't like a negative situation. It was just a different experience versus a negative experience. Is that one way to put it?
I'd say it was negative because I feel like the lack of diversity means there's a lack of creativity, ingenuity. There's a lack of different voices in the room, and if everything is all one sided or monochromatic, it's not going to be as good.
Now, is it a
Uh,
lack? No, and I agree with you wholeheartedly there. Now, is
yeah,
it different? Is it lack of is it lack of diversity, black and white, or lack of diversity, white and everything? And I say that
there,
because I'm Indian. So again, and I've never been to Seattle. My cousin, who
yeah,
you know, is the same game. We're from
yeah,
Jamaica, so we've got a weird, different kind of background. But
yeah.
to go into a situation where you have nobody like-minded,
Hmm.
or nobody came from the same background or whatever else, where if it's truly, truly, truly white and everything else, where like a spackle of, you've got you or me or whomever, you got one of each, if you will, a representative, quote
Hmm.
unquote. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? Was it that, or was it like
I
there was
think,
everything and black wasn't represented,
I
or Hispanic
think
wasn't represented, or whatever?
I think, and I don't have the exact
No, no,
numbers,
I don't
but
need
I
yeah,
think,
personal.
I think Asians are represented.
Okay.
I don't know how well represented. I'm not Asian, so I
Yeah, yeah,
can't,
I'm with you. Yeah.
but I think white is well represented. Asian is represented. Black not so much. Native not so much. Anybody else not so much. And I think where I can draw comparisons, and I think often what I try to do. So what I will say, the positive about my department is that my department was majority female.
Mm-hmm.
So it was easier to kind of rely on them to kind of see differences because they go into rooms quite often where it was mostly male. So they
Yeah.
would understand what different feels like, and it might not be a feeling that leaves you incapacitated, but in an area that prides itself on people coming up with the best ideas through a process of butting heads and just trying to break through whatever groupthink there might be going on. When you are the one that is different, then it's a little
I'm with
challenging
you.
for
I'm
you.
with you.
So in being up against that a number of times kind of just it's like hitting the same pain point and over again. Like ultimately the next one's going to hurt a little bit more than the last one, and it just depends on if you're the type of person who wants to continue to push through that and kind of be a flag bearer, or if you're the type of person to say, okay, this I'm good, I'm out, I've got the experience that I wanted out of this, I got what I needed out of this, and now it's time for me to go and do a different thing. I think there are a ton of people there. They have a lot of affinity groups
Mm-hmm.
that kind of take the sting off a bit.
Hold up. Define
Um,
that for me and everybody
so
else.
there were a lot. So there are internal groups at Amazon. I think a lot of tech companies who and their main goal is just to highlight diversity. So there was a Black employee network at Amazon. There was a GLAM, which is the gay and lesbian Amazon network. There were women at Amazon. There was Asians at Amazon. Like all of these different groups that would do different things, right? So they would have meetups or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
just throughout the calendar. And I think ultimately it's in an effort just to try to have a place of belonging. Because you won't get that if you are a straight white male, then you belong everywhere
Yeah,
in
yeah,
these buildings in Amazon. But if you are not one of those things, if you are a straight white male, I should say,
yeah.
because
Specifically
there,
that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but if you don't check all of those boxes, man, you are an other, and that might not be said, but it's definitely felt, it's definitely seen in my case.
All right. So let's
And
let's let, let's say outside Amazon, Seattle
yeah,
is
yeah,
a city.
it's the same way.
Really? Okay.
There are, I mean, there's a ton of. So again, coming from Atlanta, where
Yeah.
there are very few places where you can move away from Black people,
Yeah.
and in Los Angeles, it's incredibly spread out. But LA has Little Armenia, they
Yeah.
have Tokyo Town, they have Little Ethiopia, all of these different cultures, different
Yeah.
different groups are kind of spread out all over the city. So
I mean, unless you're in Brentwood, you
it's
probably
different.
get a diversity.
Exactly. Right. But outside of that, man, you can fall into wherever and get, a little taste of anywhere across the
Culture.
globe in
Yeah.
Los
Just
Angeles.
the general culture. Yeah.
And in Seattle, not so much, man. Well, first off, it's just a smaller city, just off top. So there's less people here than there were in Los Angeles. And because it's so white, it's as apparent as it would have been in Amazon. In addition to that, we moved into an incredibly white neighborhood when we moved here. We came to Seattle sight unseen. Um, and we ended up just living in a neighborhood that was really close to the Amazon campus. And because the majority of people who work in Amazon are white, then the neighborhood was
It's just the
white.
way it
And
was.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of my first year was just kind of bouncing in between Amazon and the crib, where this is a space where no one looked like us. So it's just you're all day, every day. You went from a neighborhood that was black, brown, yellow, red, and white to a place that's just white and you. It's noticeable, man. Like you feel it every day just walking your dog around the park at night. You know that people recognize you're in the park,
But on
right?
the
Like,
plus side, okay, so it's funny you say that, right? So Rajiv and I used to live in Hermosa Beach, California. He's still there.
yeah.
I'm not there anymore, obviously. But Hermosa Beach, California, there are a limited. It's not that diverse a city. I don't know if you've ever been, but it's not diverse. Period.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
very, very white town.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, which has its pros and cons. Obviously, cons by way of lack of diversity and culture. The opposite end, which, and again, you can take this however you want to take it, but there were there were a handful of black people and a handful of brown people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, less brown people, but not the point. The point was, if somebody saw me, they knew that I'm Amit. There's only just
Yeah.
one of me. There's
Right.
nobody else. If they saw
Yeah.
Raj, it was, yo, they've got to be related, and we were.
Right.
But it was one of these things where it was easy to some level because you were it. Like you were the shining star, the dull light, whatever you want to. You were an anomaly. The benefit of being the anomaly was that it was easy to meet people, not necessarily get ingrained, but just to meet
Mm-hmm.
people because people were curious about, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're not from here, where are you from,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So there's that level of random curiosity. On the flip side, there is you don't belong. So there's an equal side to, not equal, but there's both. Like I saw both sides where I saw the curiosity, the hold up, come hang out with us, I want to learn more about you,
Mm-hmm.
to the you don't belong here, period, because you obviously ain't from here. Where you from? What are you doing here?
Right.
Kind of thing,
Right. Right. Right.
right? Luckily, I didn't run into any true animosity on my point of view, in my travels, etc. But did you? Like, was Seattle a place that
No,
was
no, no, no.
resistant?
I've not experienced that at all. It's just a level of uncomfortableness in that you don't have, there's nobody else who
Yeah,
looks like you. So I kind of, I don't remember what it was, maybe a Mike.com or Vox video or something that was trying to describe it. I think that they did it the best way, where it's like, if you went to a club, right, and just imagine like if you were the only guy in a club full of women, or you're the only girl in a club full of men, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, but you do feel like
yeah,
there's
you feel
nobody
weird.
else here who's like me right
Yeah,
now. So if I were to just, kind of be 100% comfortable and just talk how I would,
yeah,
what the way I'm talking to you right now, or just whatever, there's a something in the back of your mind where you're like, are they gonna understand me if I say it like this? Should I have to like change? Should I think about this a little bit longer before I say it? And quite honestly, they might also be going through that because I'm in the room. But the fact that nobody is talking about it is just a weird thing to me.
okay.
Nobody mentions it. Nobody says anything at all. And the
Oh,
fact that we aren't experiencing that collectively is a strange thing to not talk about, even when we're not discussing business. Like, say it was just at lunch or we
yeah,
just went out to go get beers or something like that. And I would try to bring up like, okay, so am I like the only there's like other people here? Like I'm not the only one, right? People would just look at you like you were crazy, man, like you were speaking Martian. What? Huh? What? You're black? Get out of here. Like
I don't
we're
see
not
color. I don't see
right.
color. Yeah, there. I get it.
And then ultimately you get to a point where we're just like, all right, well, we're never going to be able to have a real conversation then if so and with that in the back of your mind all the time, it's just kind of like, all right, well, where are the people who look like me?
Yeah,
And so that's what we sought out. And ultimately when we kind of started that the project, we came across a lot of media that ultimately would talk. So I keep it specific to Seattle. when they do talk about their black or their brown population, usually they describe it as dwindling, disappearing, moving up, moving south, moving further away. Maybe they'll talk about the reasons why that's happening. Maybe they won't. But usually it's that narrative is there. And we went around and wanted to find the folks who were here, who
Okay,
were doing
so
cool things.
real quick, and I'll pause real quick. So just for the
Yeah.
people who don't know itself, so what the reason I even and I got connected was because he's got a project called UNCODE, correct?
Yes.
And UNCODE, if it's a doc, he's working on a documentary, him and his wife, and I don't know the other parties involved, but primarily him and his wife that I'm aware of anyway. And I'll let him describe exactly what the documentary is to do, is what the purpose is, or what vision, or what he was trying to get across. But that is the genesis of this conversation itself. And I believe that was spawned from what you're saying right now, was living in a place where you were the outlier.
Yeah.
And it spawned this thought process. And so you move into a lifestyle of tech startups and transitions and working in legal offices and yada 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 yada. All these things that were tangents from the job you went for. You went for this, but you got the thing right next door, the parallel line. You went down a different path, and so on and so forth. And you went further away from what you initially wanted, which was the film and TV, music, film and TV kind of game. And I know this, and I, as somebody who did the exact same thing, meaning went for one thing and kind of got driven off to the chase the money, and he went for
Yeah,
the
man.
true thing. And I don't knock it, because it is what it is, man. We gotta, bills gotta be paid, things have got to get
Yeah.
done, and
Yeah.
I don't want to live in, a shady situation for longer than I have to.
Right.
I've done my time, if you will.
Right.
But so now you're in this Amazon situation. You are the outlier. You are in a scenario that is new. You're in a city that's new. Your family, in essence, is back. Neither one, your wife and your family, are not present or not local to you guys. So you're making new friends, you're kind of building community, if you will, but nobody in your community looks like you. Nobody in your community has had your past experiences. Nobody in your community can truly understand your experiences. And you mentioned, too, the Ferguson thing. Well, you guys were in France, and you come back, and Ferguson, not while you were there, Ferguson's happening. So I don't know if that was a catalyst, but what even drove you to go, all right, I'm good at all, I'm doing these things, money's getting, bills getting paid, I'm good at this stuff, et cetera, to I'm going to go and become a documentary filmmaker? Like, why would, and why would you even think about doing a documentary? Like, what were you trying to accomplish? Let's start there. Why did you want to create a documentary?
So we were watching a lot. We cut the cord a while ago. I want to say probably 3 or 4 years ago now. We've gone without cable, and all of the content that we watch is come through some type of streaming service.
Okay.
So Netflix, Hulu, Sling, tons of YouTube clips that we just can just watch over and over again. So we got into the habit of watching a lot of I mentioned Vox earlier. A lot of Mike, a lot of Vice, a lot of just short, just like docu style stories
Okay.
that were being uploaded on YouTube. And I discovered through those stories and through like a lot of just the content that we were consuming through the newspaper, through local TV, local TV news, or just the radio, NPR stories, etc. A lot of the narratives when they were describe or talk about Black folks were damaging. And I used to say negative, but I think now I feel like even the people who are trying to add positivity it's still the stories are still damaging. So it started with Mike Brown, and there was just a string of murders, police shootings, incidents across the country that would leave people who look like me, big Black men, dead in the street. Sometimes Black women, sometimes Black children, just dead in the street. And so whether these updates were coming from Fox News or coming from Huffington Post, ultimately the story would be another Black person is dead right now. And these would be stories that we would get on Good Morning America or on the radio, or before we even get our first cup of coffee in us, we're seeing these images. And I have numerous friends who are able to kind of look at that stuff, who don't look like me, and are able to say, "Oh man, it's really effed up. Like that's a terrible situation."
Yeah. And
But
move on.
me, right? But me, I'm seeing me. So it starts to affect you when you're driving around. You hope to never get pulled over, even though I literally just gave you my entire background. None of it has been anything that would make someone kind of second guess and make them think that I have any type of shady dealings going on. But I'm not able to give a police officer who pulls
Yeah.
me over
You look
my
a
life
certain way.
story.
Yeah.
Right.
You're black. I mean, it is what it
So,
is. Yeah.
and it would, start to affect my wife, and she would just be more concerned when I would go out at night to walk the dog around the neighborhood. These things were, just in our everyday lives. And I started to understand the importance and the power that media had over you're just every day. And
Yeah.
even if you weren't, just this evil-hearted, racist person, if you were up on your news and you were paying attention to what was going on in the world, because you watch the same news I watch, we are still getting the same stories of black people being associated with murder, with crime, with guns. And because I'm from a city, born and raised in a city where there's black affluence, right? There's black excellence, there's black academia, black bankers, black architects, black scientists, black businessmen, black whatever. Just the entire a full spectrum of people who look like me, doing an incredible things and doing a ton of things. You move to LA and you get a little less, and then you move to Seattle and you get damn near none of the other things that black people have to
Now hold up.
offer.
Now I think that's an interesting point you brought up there. That's probably another conversation for another time. But why is it all in Atlanta? But we can get this another time. I'm sure there's a lot of history
I
behind
mean,
that. But because there's
yeah,
so many
it's
cities, like
it's
it
the
blows my
South,
mind.
man. It's
No,
the
no.
it's not it's the South, and
But I mean, like you have like the fact that Atlanta as a city has become the predominant area for just that for black excellence across the
yeah,
board, right? You've got a plethora of black people in a variety of cities, but none of those communities have become what Atlanta became or
yeah.
is. And
I think there were some, and then things happened. For anybody interested, they can look up Black Wall Street and see what happens. But what happened in Atlanta was, this is my uneducated assumption,
uh-huh.
is that for whatever reason, the black banks in Atlanta uh, stayed open and stayed around. And with that economy there, and kind of black folks banking, with black bankers, they're able to keep their dollar in their community and able to thrive a little bit more than someone who spends their money with other communities, and they don't get small businesses up and running, kind of get things self-sufficient, so to speak.
I
And
honestly didn't realize that. I need
yeah,
to do some
man,
more research on my end.
there was a number of black millionaires. I mean, from the 20s, in Atlanta, and they kept the money in the city. Um, and unfortunately, there's cities like Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's another one in Florida that the name is escaping me right now. But a sign of the times, man. Those black people there in those areas weren't able to thrive, and it's due to some malicious acts done by their neighbors in those areas. So unfortunately, they weren't able to thrive like my brethren in the South there.
But see what's weird to me about that too is Atlanta as well. Like you have there's a general notion of the South being.
Super racist.
Thank you. I don't want to. I was like, how do I say this better? But yes, right. But yet
Yeah,
there is a city, a prime major
yeah,
metropolitan hub in the South
yeah,
that is it's Black Hollywood, it's Black
yeah.
finance, it's Black Wall Street, it's Black whatever, it's everything like that with the word Black in front of it is there in and it's surrounded by all of
That
that.
and as soon have you been to Atlanta before?
Yeah. I used to do. I've worked in Atlanta before. There's some films down there I've
So
worked on. Yes,
so
I've
so
done my Atlanta game. Yeah.
so Atlanta
Well, like Buckhead was
is
not. I went to Buckhead a decade and change ago. Buckhead is not
yeah.
what it was then.
No.
You,
But Atlanta is in December 2016 right now.
yeah.
Anywhere in the state of Georgia, but that is not Atlanta, is 1965. And it's been that way for a long time, man. You can leave the city limits of Atlanta and just feel the
Oh no,
racism. It's
I've done the
palpable.
drive around. Yeah. I've been to
Yeah.
Savannah. I've done some other places around
So
Georgia. I've done some stuff. Yeah.
it's a blue city, but it's in a sea of red. So I
But you
can't.
understand, like, how is that? It's so interesting that
I don't know, man.
thrives. And I use the word thrive
I
because it
don't
is.
know.
It's a thriving community where you haven't given up any black culture. You've in
Yeah.
essence empowered it in and surrounded by what would be old white affluence.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But yet
I
it
don't know,
works. But then
man.
there's other
I don't know.
cities that it
It could
hasn't
be a lot.
worked.
It could be. I know Atlanta's the hub because Delta's there.
Yeah.
It has connections to international cities there. In addition to it being just a satellite city. My wife and I have been talking about this for the past couple of days. Atlanta is a secondary city in that money from New York and LA often flows through Atlanta, and I don't think that happens. In like cities in the middle of the country.
True. I'll give you that. Yeah,
So
I wouldn't even think
there,
middle. I was thinking purely coast, but I'm with you. Yeah, the middle.
yeah,
I wouldn't see that at all.
and I mean up and down the coast. There's the Carolinas to plenty of other cities that have large African American populations, but
But
for
not
one
what you
reason
can.
or
Not what
another,
Atlanta
yeah.
is.
Nah,
You
so
know what
I
I'm
was I
saying?
was lucky in that aspect, and in me kind of going off and doing my own thing, and actually having even the confidence and the audacity to do what I've done. Ultimately, it's come because I've been around people who look like me who have done it.
All right,
So it's
let's
not a
hold up.
shocking thing.
Let me go there then, right? Because that's more okay, and we'll get to Uncoded, and we'll touch more on that.
Yeah.
And I'm taking a good amount of your time, so I won't be too much longer. We can do a round two or whatever. But okay, I grew up in a community. I'm Indian. I grew up in an Indian
Mm-hmm.
community where whatever grade you got wasn't good enough unless it
Mm-hmm.
was an A plus. You know what I'm saying? Unless
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't 100, why don't you get 100? Like anything shy of
Right.
that is why don't you do more, right? So the culture
Right.
was different, right? The idea of being entrepreneurial worked in the sense that you get a lot of praise if you make it. But
Right.
if you don't make it, it's like you're an idiot for even trying it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like because there are professions that are quote unquote guaranteed. You become a medical professional, you become a lawyer, you become whatever. You will have your family taken care of. You go into the game of like, look, I'm gonna go down and be a music supervisor on some films. Like, what are you doing? I'm gonna go work on a film here and here's a freelance. It's like, all right, well, that's a great long term job. It's like, no, I'm working in this film for like 6 months and then I'm out of a job and then I gotta find a new one.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? So the idea of going down a non-standard path isn't something that's nurtured and sponsored and founded and supported and nurtured and all that good stuff within that community because it doesn't work. However, if I went out on my own and I made it and I'm now a big mogul because I've done all these little risky things that we thought, Amit's a genius. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Then the community's all behind me. Then it's like,
Yeah.
oh yes, Indian guy doing well. And it's
Right.
like, hold up,
Yeah.
you guys weren't supporting me when I was trying to do these things.
Yeah.
Now in your game, you went from a city that you had that support
Mm-hmm.
because you'd seen it done by other people
Mm-hmm.
who there was always a pioneer, but either way, luckily we don't have to be that. We can be subtle pioneers, but we didn't have to
Right.
be that.
Right.
Right? We could build off of what other people had done. But you had that support, like you had your family going, hey, good luck, go do your thing, go try
Hell
yourself out
no.
or whatever.
Hell no. Hell no. No, man. The reason why I went to law school was because I grew up. My parents were like, you can be whatever you want to. We're here to support you. Anything you want to go do, you can go be that thing as long as it's a doctor or a lawyer. You can do whatever you want to do.
All
We
right,
will be
we're in the
here
same
to
boat.
support you 100%, but it's going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Like that's what it was, man. And I think also my mom is in the health profession, so that I just think that that's what she knows.
Yeah.
And I think that just people understand that these letters behind your name after you graduate come with this dollar amount,
Yeah.
this salary, this yearly.
But that's
that
what it
you
comes
pull
down to. It comes down to the dollar amount to support your family versus
Yeah, 100% is what
joy,
it is.
passion,
Yeah.
love, whatever. That's all
Yeah,
secondary.
had I told my parents years when I was still in Atlanta that I was gonna one day work for Apple and help sell a startup for hundreds of millions of dollars, they would have been like, "Get the hell out of here! Go be a doctor or a lawyer." So also, I'm in the same boat, man, where you kind of just have to go do your thing and understand you're able to leverage that. They're your parents, and what they're gonna do, not love
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go do it anyway. You're gonna be mad at me, but when
So
I
you come
make
from a
it,
2-parent supportive household like I did.
yeah. Yeah.
Right,
And it
which
was
is huge, and your dad's a professional as well.
100%, 100%. Yeah, my father, and this was, this is why it wasn't so scary to me, is because my dad left IBM in the '70s to start his own thing, and so the entrepreneurial spirit, man, was kind of always in me.
That's
That
pretty simple.
said, I think he knew how difficult it was, and understood that you should probably just be, you should have a
Like nobody
steady
wants to put their
paycheck coming
kids through the
in.
same stress they went through.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of it, man, was just me being like, all right, well, I'm going to go do this thing. And I understand that you're not going to like it. But when it becomes a little bit more developed and when the ball gets rolling, I'll know that then you'll catch on to it and you'll understand exactly what a music supervisor is.
Yeah.
But had I described it to them when I wanted to go do it, they would have been like, no, you need to go, you need to finish Emory Law,
So-
stay there. And I was like, nah, this is not
you
going
went
to
to the
happen.
small school Emory, yeah, that little school. Good
I was
on
like,
you,
this is
man.
not for me, man. Well, I mean, I came down to loans, man. Like I left.
I'm still paying mine. I feel you.
I left undergrad, and I was like, never again, man. I don't want to do this again. But I kind of fell into the hole where it's just like, what do you know? You have a degree, and there's this whole world out here. So go do it now. and I didn't really know where I fit in at that time. So, and like I said, I was doing a lot of internships and the clerkships. And this is me thinking I was going to be an attorney at the time. And then I got in law school, man, and I hated it. Immediately, I hated it. And I had like 2 L's and 3, or like second years and third years, kids like looking at me like, this is going to be a pain in the ass for you. For the next 3 years, you're going to be doing something that you don't want to do. You should not do this. Get out now while you can still get a little bit of money back. And ultimately, that's what I did, man. I jumped ship because I knew that I may leave with this degree. I'm going to be hundreds of dollars in debt because of student loans, and I might get a job that's entertainment based. But
how'd the family feel about that?
They understood after a while, but when I was doing it, man, they were pissed off because they didn't get it. I had just left school, and up until that point, everything I was talking about was law, entertainment law, music law, film law, and so they were like, "Well, how are you going to understand it if you don't go to law school?" And I think I just had a game plan at the time where if I could just be around professionals and kind of just soak up their knowledge and ask questions whenever I wanted to, in addition to having these contacts in my back pocket right now today, that seemed to be more beneficial for me as opposed to going and talking to a professor at a school in some core classes that I'm not going to need.
Street knowledge is an amazing thing, man. When you get out there and learn some stuff.
That's ultimately what it was, and that's where I got the confidence. And I think that just being a reoccurring thing in my life, just trying to figure out how to make efficiencies, how to make things more efficient, how to make things move a little bit faster.
So you take this confidence and you go through your career path to date, and you take it to Amazon, and then the unfortunate resurgence of a civil rights need in this country spawns itself now again in 2016. And you feel the need to document that. You feel the need to showcase that. Like, enlighten me with what UNCODE. Well, let's put it this way. What is UNCODE? Let's start there. And why the name?
So you were dead on, man, with the documentary series. That's 100% what it is. It's an ongoing short form content film series, and we highlight the presence, the global influence, and the varied interests of the African diaspora. So going back to what we said a couple of moments
define diaspora for the people who don't understand.
Yeah, so we all hopefully the majority of people understand the history of slavery.
Yes.
Whether the origins are in Africa or India, we understand that people were being shipped across the planet, and over the hundreds of years, the hundreds of years that this terrible act has been going on, these people were being shipped from the continent to the Caribbean, to Latin America, to North America, and we just African people of African descent start growing a presence in all of these countries, in the Western world, in Europe, all across the planet, essentially. So there are people of African descent across the entire globe. So ultimately, that's what the diaspora is, and we are spread out across the planet. Large amounts due to just the shipment and the ownership of my people, because this is a very profitable business back in the day. You would go and get more chattel. Essentially, is what it was. So,
but is your goal to showcase where people came from to where they are and the struggles you're still going through, and
not necessarily,
or just to show people what is, I guess, as a series, the series is set your vision is to show the non-black person, or to reinforce with the black community. But what are you trying to educate me to as a non-black person, or to reinforce within your black community? What are you trying to do with it?
I can say first is to ultimately reach the people who are currently like me. So there are other African Americans, right, in this country who don't have a large black population around them. And unfortunately, if they turn on the news or they read a newspaper or they listen to the radio, they're going to be hit, whether these are allies or whether these are people who think that Black Lives Matter groups are terrorist organizations. Ultimately, whenever they report on Black lives, it's usually in relation to a riot or a protest or some sadness or some anger going on currently. So as you watch the same news that I watch, we get the same narratives. And if a Black child who doesn't have a ton of other Black people around them is turned on CBS to watch a story about them, and it's damaging in some way, that never sat well with me. That's not okay, because now being in Seattle, I understand that I understand how much of a bubble I grew up in. Atlanta was a
Yeah.
world of its own, essentially, and there's not too many other places in this country that are like it. While I was there, though, I thought every place in the country was like Atlanta. There was a fair representation of Black folks there, and the people who were there were doing awesome things all across the spectrum. And it wasn't until I moved to Seattle where I realized that is not the truth. That is not the real deal, man. And
So negative
usually,
begets negativity, and positivity begets
exactly,
positivity.
exactly.
They're
That's
reinforced.
that's 100% what it is. So before I wanted to reach any non-Black folks to try to explain to them what this community, what this culture really truly is about, I wanted to try to reach people who look like me, who might not have this positivity when they turn on the news, or when they go check their Facebook or whatever, and they're being hit with these news stories again. Whether it's Huffington Post or whether it's Fox News, if you're telling me a story about how the police shot another Black person, and I get that over and over and over and over again, this has to be messing with our mental health in some capacity. I'm
But
not a
then,
doctor.
but why do you? But why do you? Now, is this for? Is this subtly for you and whomever else benefits, or is this for somebody else? Like, is this, are you doing this for a community as a whole, or are you doing this, or is
Yes.
this somewhat to reinforce the fact that you still believe there's a lot of good things out there that are happening, and you want to balance off what you're getting all the time from the current mainstream media, whatever that may be?
Yes to both.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And it really started, like, us cutting the cord and watching what was available online. And the first thing, seeing that not a lot of these outlets had a large African American voice within their editorial process. So even if they were going to communities of color, they would be stories that were reported on and edited and published by people who weren't of color. So it was through their gaze, through their lens, and ultimately, whenever you change a story to fit a particular audience's lens, then you get further and further away
Yeah.
from the authenticity of it. So what we wanted to do was try to just try to provide stories that were positive, solution-driven stories, uh, that were delivered by Black storytellers for Black storytellers. Because if you were in Nebraska, and you're a farmer, and you barely have neighbors, let alone Black neighbors,
Yeah.
you might want to tune into some content that is uplifting, that makes you feel good, as opposed to, let me try to find out what Black people are up to today. If you go to abcnews.com and you're seeing just ridiculous shit going on, man, it just didn't sit well with us, because that was more often than not what the narratives were. So
So you're
what we
trying to be like
wanted to
kind of a
do
Vice, but for positive Black stories.
so what we wanted to do was just to provide a healthy counterbalance. I used to say
Okay.
that there was so much negativity, and we wanted to combat it. But I do think that there are people who are reporting issues that need to be reported on. That being said, they do a good job at it, and I don't want to replicate it. What I will do is offer a counterbalance to that information, to that news, that is positive, that is solution driven, and in addition to that, it highlights the people who are in spaces where ordinarily you would think, I didn't know Black people did that. But now we have stories of these individuals who are in those spaces and are thriving in those
But how
spaces
are
and
you
doing
okay?
what they're
And
doing
how are you
very
getting your
well.
content? How are you finding these true positive
So,
stories?
what benefits me, man? And here's another another one of the privileges that allowed this to happen was, all through this process, my wife has been an independent artist, a photographer, a videographer, and kind of just exploring the streets of Atlanta, exploring the streets of Los Angeles, and now Seattle, and just kind of going around and capturing the images of people, in their daily life. So I knew she had an eye for it already, and because we had the equipment and the editing gear, it wasn't so difficult and it wasn't so outlandish for us to kind of say, well, this shit looks easy. How hard could it possibly be for us to go do
To create a
something?
channel.
Right? And it wasn't even that. It was just like, what if we created something, one thing, and just kind of see what it was? And I said it out loud, and she didn't think that it was that crazy. So we kind of started. We had a proof of concept. We had a couple of friends in Seattle that we knew that we could reach, who were doing some really cool things, and we were able to just kind of go follow them along as they created these. We have a story from a muralist out here who just completed a city commission mural alongside of this famous radio station, and it's of this huge Black woman, and it's in the Seattle city center. So we're like, all right, it's a pretty interesting story.
Yeah.
We need to try to figure out how the hell this came about. And then, she kind of introduced us to some other people who were doing some cool things. Who introduced us to some other folks. And throughout this process, we started to kind of get some popularity. That's the wrong word. We started to get some attention.
Visibility, attention,
Yeah.
tomato.
And we realized that we had something, we were on to something, and we wanted to expand it. And, her being from the Bay, me being from Atlanta, us both having ties in Los Angeles, we realized that we knew, in addition to my two sisters live in Brooklyn now, who are really into the art scene in New York. So we realized that we had, through just family and between my wife and I, we had a presence in the art scene, in film and entertainment. And if we really wanted to scale this thing, it wouldn't be as difficult as it would if we not made a lot of those moves prior in our previously in the years prior, and if we didn't have the family and the connections that we currently have. So it just lucked out that because I had gone through the merger and acquisition process at Apple and at Beats and at Verizon.
Life, man.
Yeah, man, that I ended up having these people who could really bless us with a ton of strategy, with a ton of information, with a ton of advice. And because we spent so long in Los Angeles, kind of just nurturing our relationships within the film industry, these people who were honest filmmakers, like legit filmmakers, not me, because I still don't consider myself a filmmaker. I'm learning how to do all of this stuff as we go along. My wife, who's pretty skilled with the camera, is kind of just showing me the ins and outs of things. But because we have filmmakers who are friends of ours, who've been friends of ours for years, we're able to bounce ideas off of them. We're able to bounce concepts. We're able to bounce storyboards and just quickly shot and edited visuals, so they can kind of come back with us and tell us what's good, what's not, and then we're able to edit that and kind of publish things and move along.
All right.
Once all of this stuff, once we kind of got our head around the people who would be in place to help us kind of nurture this idea and move forward, then we realized that this was something that we should put our full focus and attention on.
So how can people, and I'm running out of time. Well, you're running out of time. I put it that way. But we've been talking for a little bit. But real quick, just before I wrap things up with you, is for at least the first part of our conversation is, how do people find you? How do people get exposed to UNCODE? How do people learn about UNCODE? We were talking about it before. There's not much out there. I'm assuming intentionally at this point, but
on me, just because I'm a pretty private
step
dude.
up your game, man. Come on,
yeah, man.
bro.
I'll tell you what, because I say like this was probably 2010, 2011, where I got bored with social media.
No, I don't blame you there, but UNCODE
it was just Facebook, right? It was just Facebook, and so I was like, "This is not for me." In addition, I was getting married, so it's like,
don't get me wrong. I don't know how to use the Snapchats or the whatever's.
So it just wasn't
even start. But this is
so what happened
that
was
I'm starting for the same purpose: is not to be Facebook, but to talk to people like yourself, people who are doing cool things for greater good, whatever that may be for them.
Yeah.
But to perpetrate that and to continue along that path is, how does somebody piggyback off of your success or your knowledge, or understand more of what you're trying to accomplish, or see your product?
All of our stories can be found at our YouTube channel. So that's YouTube. You can just search UNCODE, UNCODE, in YouTube and pull up our channel. You can go to, or you can see everything about the team, about our collective of artists that we have working in multiple geolocations across the country. We're expanding in 2017 to across the water, and people of African descent in London and Paris to submit stories. You can find more information about all of that at our website at theuncode.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all at theuncode. So I've gotten back into the social media game because of this thing. But yeah, for a while, man, I was like, nah, this isn't the scene. So I'm just going to jet off. So that's why you weren't able to find any information about me. But plenty of info about UNCODE is out there. And we're currently, man, editing a number of stories. And because our content is short form, it was kind of the mission from jump to make sure that we were able to scale and kind of expand and have these stories as easily shared as possible. So our stories are between 1 and 10 minutes long. They're short films, and we're hoping that we're able to leverage mobile views on phones and tablets more often than desktop views or television views. So that's why our stories are so short. in addition to being able to share the films via social media. And I believe currently the max is like 10 minutes on Instagram if you have like a business account or something of that nature. So that was kind of our mission from the giddy up.
Stay within that realm.
Yeah, and a lot of our research before we launched was trying to determine how people of color, specifically Black folks, consumed media, whether it's news, TV, over the internet, etc. And we found out that Black folks, man, were the largest consumers of content across the board, across every single time compared to every other group. Neither did I, and so that was eye-opening for me because I started to realize that a lot of this media that we just discussed, and even when people have the best intentions, they don't necessarily perpetuate the best narratives or the best messages. And because now that I know that Black people are consuming the majority of that content, then it just kind of, it was in the back of my head, man, like this has to be damaging to us. Our mental health is somewhere in there. It's being damaged. I'm not a doctor, but I know for sure it can't be good if we wake up to this stuff every single day.
Again and again and again.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So we wanted to kind of combat a lot of that. We wanted to counter a lot of that with the positive solution-driven stories that we have. So we wanted to seek out the people who were doing incredible things in their spaces, whether it was a majority Black space or not, because that person was doing what they were doing. Then now it can no longer be considered a non-Black thing because now we've just shown you a Black person who's doing it. And more than showing non-Blacks what we're up to and just a breadth of information.
One second.
Yeah, sure.
You're heading out? I will see you tomorrow. I'll do it again. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem, man. So, so ultimately we decided that we wanted to reach people who didn't have these inspirational stories for themselves, who were unable to see themselves excelling in these spaces because they didn't have someone to look up to in their immediate community in real life. And that's limiting in a number of different ways because if you don't see it, then you can't be it. So we wanted to provide these stories to people who are within our own community so they might be inspired and motivated to go do out whatever they might be currently doing that previously was considered a not Black thing.
Yeah.
So that was our first step. Those were the people that we wanted to hit first. And because it's just turned out to be a really cool thing with dope music involved, it's content that everybody can watch and enjoy. And, we were just kind of really, really lucky to be in a position to continue to do it because of the moves that we've made. Both my wife and I, that we made in our career earlier. We've been lucky enough to kind of forego the salaries of the tech world to kind of continue to stay focused on this.
So this is it. This is permanent. There's no more Amazon, nothing on the side. This is 100%.
Man. Yeah, this is what it is. And every day I wake up trying to figure out how to get our artists paid, how to get our storytellers paid, and the partnerships that we might be able to leverage, secure, and nurture with brands or with companies who are looking to extend their reach into the African American community. One of the things that we have setting a guideline for those partnerships is they have to be doing either something positive in our community, or at the very least, they cannot be doing anything to damage Black folks in the area. So as long as they, kind of meet those requirements, then we're able to partner with them. And we're really lucky that the idea has taken off in the world of digital content, especially video content. And we are even luckier because our content is optimized for mobile. And as we found, if you are a content, if your organization relies on content, digital content, if you're not figuring out ways how to reach people on their mobile device, then you are already behind.
Yeah.
So we were kind of just in a good position. And because as our research has shown that more often than not, people of color are influencers in regards to what, not only content, but devices, and just I think it's just it's known fact now that if you are Black or brown in this country, usually you are up on something first, and then it reaches the mainstream at a later stage. So because we are set as influencers, and because we're in a position where mobile video content is what's right around the corner, then we are in a beautiful space, man, and I think it's right on time. I will say that because of the presidential election results, people are looking at our content differently than they would have a couple of months ago. Again, that just works out in our favor. We didn't start with this intent, but that it is what it is now. People are seeking out more diverse content now currently right as we launch. But we've been at this for a little while, man. It just this is just the way that things have happened.
It works out when it's supposed to work out in weird ways.
Yeah.
But on the real, I know I've taken a good amount of time. I really appreciate your time. It's been
I mean, it's all
great.
good, bro.
And I'm gonna post the links in general, but it's theuncode.com, uncode at YouTube. Search for uncode there, and you can get the content that's there. There's obviously more to come. This is the genesis. The reason I wanted to talk to Ali at this point is this is the 2016 project that's going to start in 2016. That's not going to end anytime soon. And more stories about black people doing positive things wherever they may be are coming through to this forum. And I just wanted to spread some more positivity on
Thank you,
the world
man.
and life in general, but with cool people are doing cool things. Much love, man. I appreciate the time, for real.
Same here, bro.
I'll probably reach out to you again. We'll do another one of these talks at some point when you got
For sure,
something
bro.
else, man. But
listen, man, hit me whenever. I'm down. And as we continue to kind of unroll, and you're able to see more of the type of content that we have and the type of platform that we plan to establish, things will make a little bit more sense. I'm happy to kind of hop on again, man. Talk to you.
Much love. We'll do it again, man. We'll do it again. Enjoy the holidays. Happy New Year's when it comes.
Same to you, man.
Merry Christmas, holiday, whatever it is.
All that.
We'll catch you guys soon enough, man. Much love.
Peace out, bro.
Take it easy, man. Thanks.
Yeah.